Adjunct Professor Moran, Macroeconomics. In the last session, we learned that government policy should be predicated on what the current condition of the economy is. If the economy is in recession, they should engage in expansionary fiscal policy. If the economy is in inflationary period, they should engage in contractionary fiscal policy. When GDP is less than full employment, we're in a recession, and the government should increase spending and decrease taxes. Let's take an example of what that means from a budgetary point of view. Let's say government spending is 100 and taxes 100. The budget is said to be balanced. We need to understand between a balanced budget and a debt. If the economy is in a recession and the government increases G to 110 and taxes are 90, then the government is spending 20 more in spending than they're earning in taxes, and that results in a deficit. Where can the government get money? They're 20 short. If the government spends in a recession 130 and taxes 100, then they are 30 short. That's a deficit. Where are they going to get that money? Well, they could borrow it. They have a debt of 50. 0 and 20, 20 plus 30 is 50. Where can the government get money? They can either borrow it or print it. When you don't have enough money to make all your purchases, you can borrow money on a credit card or take it along from the bank. The government can print new money out of nothing. If you decide to take dollar bills and print them on a printer in your basement, that's called counterfeiting, and you'll be arrested. But this is perfectly acceptable for the government to do to increase the money supply. If the government is facing an inflationary period, the government wants to undertake a contractionary fiscal policy. The government and fiscal policy is about spending and taxing. We're assuming the quantity of money is fixed. To fight inflation, the government should decrease spending and increase taxes. Decreasing spending will cause aggregate demand to fall. Increasing taxes will cause consumption to fall. All right. So let's say government spending is 100 to start with, and spending is 100. The budget is balanced. There's no deficit, no surplus, no debt. If the government decreases the spending to 90 to fight inflation, decreasing spending, and increases taxes to 20, so consumers have less to spend, the government will have a surplus. 90 spending, 110 earnings, 20 left over, surplus. The government increases spending to 110, taxes increase to 130. The government now has 30 left over, another surplus. Okay. What can the government do when they have a deficit, when they're spending too much or earning too much? When the government is spending too much, they can either borrow the money to finance the deficit, but there's a problem. If the government borrows money, the demand for money increases. You have business and consumers borrowing money, and now the government is trying to borrow money, more money. The demand for money increases. Anytime the demand for something increases, its price increases. What's the price of money? It's interest rates. If interest rates increase, then consumers will spend less money on durable goods. Remember that consumption can either be spent on goods or services. Goods can be divided into durable or non-durable goods. Durable goods are things that last 3 or more years and are usually expensive. Often because they're expensive, they are money to purchase durable goods are borrowed. If interest rates go up, then the consumption of durable goods goes down. If you remember, business spending is a function of interest rates, because new capital spending is often done with borrowing, and if interest rates go up, less borrowing by businesses will occur and business spending will go down. So if G goes up and government borrows the money, it will have a negative impact on C and IG, which is partly offsetting the expansionary policy. Expansionary policy, partly offset by a decrease in C&IG. This is called crowding out, and it's an important criticism of expansionary fiscal policy. The answer, of course, is that expansionary fiscal policy should only be taken when the government finds itself in a deep recession and is increasing GDP in the horizontal range, where increases in GDP can be occurred with no change in price level. When it gets to micromanaging economy, when we move into the intermediate range, that can be an issue. We talk about that in new units. However, if the economy finds itself in an inflationary period, a contractionary fiscal policy is appropriate. At this point, a decrease in government spending would be appropriate, because since government spending is a component of aggregate demand would fall as a result. Now, the government could also result in a contractionary fiscal policy by increasing taxes. Consumers spend less, or consumers spend less because of an increase in taxes. They have less disposable income, or government spends less directly. Now, that's going to result in a government surplus. Less spending, more taxes. More expenses, more income. How the government finds that will also determine the effectiveness of contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy. Government's balanced at 100 and 100. They cut spending, increase taxes. The government has 20 extra left over. The government cuts spending. All right, in this example, spending is still less than taxes, and they have a surplus, spending being less than taxes, of 20 and 30. What should the government do with that? The choices are either to pay down prior debts when they were in a recessionary period, or impound, or just lock up the money. If the government pays down debt, this will not be helpful, because they pay down a debt, it's going to increase the supply of money. When the supply of something goes up, its cost goes down. The supply of money is interest rates. That will cause interest rates to fall, and consumer spending will rise on durable goods. Business spending will rise on capital equipment, because the purchase of capital equipment is now less, and more business projects are profitable. In this case, aggregate demand, because of contractionary fiscal policy, would fall. But, well, it would fall to here, let's say. But these impacts on consumer spending and business spending would push a slight blowback the other way. It would be counterproductive. Instead, the government should impound the money, which means to hold on to it. It would have no negative impact on interest rates and no negative consequence on a blowback. So how the government pays for fiscal policy, either expansionary or contractionary, will determine its effectiveness. In an expansionary fiscal policy, the government should print money. Ordinarily, that might result in a decrease in C&IG called crowding out. But in a deep recession, when expansionary fiscal policy is most appropriate, there will be no change in price level, and given the quantity of money is fixed, there will be no change in the demand and the interest rate, the price for money, resulting in no blowback. Fiscal policy and monetary policy related to its effectiveness.